This is the Monsgeek M1W V3 VIA. It is a bit mouthful for a keyboard, and if I'm considering replacing my Aula F75, this is probably the keyboard I would get. But after using it for more than a month, I have my reservations. I love this keyboard simply because it looks good. I love the colors of the keycaps and the plate, and the linear switch is good enough for typing, at least for me. However, there are a few things that make me look elsewhere if I'm being honest. It's not that it's a bad keyboard per se, but I think some weird choices were made during the design phase. Let's immediately discuss the things I don't like about this keyboard. First is the power switch. Maybe it's to make the keyboard as minimal as possible, but I don't see the logic behind this power button underneath the caps lock key. It's annoying to yank out the key whenever I need to switch between modes. If you do plan to use this keyboard primarily with Windows and Android devices, switching between dongle mode and 3 Bluetooth devices is as easy as other keyboards, meaning using keyboard shortcuts. If you add a Mac device, you need to toggle the switch into Mac mode every single time. Now, you can choose not to switch to Mac mode, but that means getting used to inverted command and control functions. However, there is another quirk if you are solely a Mac user. For some reason, the keyboard stops working, particularly the control command when coming from a MacBook sleep state. The only workaround is to turn off the keyboard, which by the way is under a key. Personally, that is the biggest reason why I'm not fully committing to this keyboard, simply because all of my work is done on my MacBook. But if I'm not working on a MacBook, in all fairness, this keyboard is great. For starters, the battery inside is bigger than most keyboards out there at 6000 mAh cell. In dongle mode, I get at least 5 or 6 days of use before needing to charge. Charging once every 7 days is possible if you only use your keyboard for 2 to 3 hours a day. Monsgeek did not indicate the time to go from 0 to 100%, and while you can check the indicator manually with a shortcut, for some reason my indicator never went above 80%. The all-metal build and half that comes with it make for a premium feeling keyboard. When fully assembled, you're looking at a 1.875 kilograms of weight. You can order a barebone version for as low as $93, but if you want it fully assembled, the body comes in one color only, but the switches come in two varieties, namely Rosewood and V3 Creamy Purple Pro. All that for nearly $110 US. Links in the description box if you're interested. Fortunately, we get to test both switches. V3 Creamy Purple Pro is a tactile switch with a bumpy and rough feeling when typing, which is not my preference when it comes to typing, but Rosewood is of linear type and is good enough for smooth typing. It's not my favorite as far as speed and actuation force go, but it's good enough. Here's how they sound. Due to the colored casing of these switches, you won't get pure white in the LEDs, which is a bit of a bummer given the color palette of the keyboard itself, and despite the hot swappable 5-pin switch sporting south-facing LEDs to go along with the south-facing keycaps, the legibility of the transparent labels is not consistent and barely helps in most cases. Even in different colors and at maximum brightness, the labels are not as clear as they should be. As far as functionality goes, these cherry profile keycaps feel just fine unless you're coming from a different profile, of course. They feel solid and stable, perhaps extra solid since they require more force to actuate. I would say this is better suited for gamers than typists. I can feel the heftiness of the keyboard in every key press, if that makes sense. For a 75% layout, you have a knob on the top right side for volume and brightness adjustment. For someone who is used to smaller layouts, I did find the number rows, specifically the numbers 9 and 0, a bit pushed to the left, but that's a nitpick at this point. When it comes to customization, it does support VIA, and the product page has everything you need to get started. There are multiple layers to play around, which is always a good thing. Other than the keyboard itself, there are several items in the box, including stabilizers, screws, a USB-C cable, and keycap and switch spoilers, among others. As I have mentioned earlier, this is a great looking keyboard with great software support and functionalities. But for someone like me who switches between Mac and Windows, the hassle of having to switch the power mode under a keycap is annoying and intuitive. I can forgive the inconsistent LEDs, but when it comes to functionalities, I'm not willing to put up with that kind of workaround. But maybe you only use a Windows device or an Android device. Well, this may be well worth the asking price. But that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel. And as always, until the next one, stay safe.